I first got elected in 2018 when I was about 28 years old. I'm one of the younger lawmakers in the legislature and do what I can to help amplify younger voices and the voices of generations like mine in the legislature. The majority of my colleagues are not just much older, but have a completely different generational mindset and also are disconnected from what millennials and Gen Z are going through. In particular, just the wealth disparities between the legislature and the greater public is really egregious. In fact, the net value, the average net value of my colleagues is around $6 million, and it is a huge contrast from what they experience to what the everyday person experiences. So I try to bring that voice to everything that I do, to center the conversation on communities of color, on working class people, on the needs of everyday families, to really try to bring the focus back, not just to the special interests, which many of my colleagues are there to champion, but to focus on our constituents. And the reality is that a lot of younger voters, they don't feel inspired right now. They don't feel like voting matters. They don't see themselves in their elected officials. And so I really think it's important to provide that contrast, to be that voice that can really speak to a younger generation. And hopefully it not only inspires civic engagement, but I want to see more young people in office. I think that things are only going to change if people who are in their 30s, even in their 20s, decide to run for office to help shift what the status quo is today.
My name is Dr. Pat Sapoy, and I am, as you said, a lifelong educator. Once I retired from education, I joined the League of Women Voters, and I realized that there was not something specifically addressing the needs of Gen Alpha, I guess it is now, and Gen Z. And even the millennials. The youngest voting bloc is ages 18 to 29. And that is the lowest turnout group that we have, even though in this upcoming election, it is going to be almost the majority. And in 2026, it will be the majority. So um, I felt that it was important for young people to understand the importance of voting and that the power that they could have if they actually turned out to vote. Because I realized by speaking with many that they really didn't feel that it made any difference at all. They might have decided to vote in presidential elections because that's what everybody hears about, but they didn't even know that there was an election every single year. So, as a member of the league, I felt that that needed to change and that we were in a good position because we're a nonpartisan organization to try to fill in that gap.
Yeah, so my name is Ed Potasnik. I'm executive director of New Jersey LCV, and we work to get environmental supporters, Republicans, Democrats, and independents, engaged in their community and in the state to advance environmental policies that will protect their health, their community, and future generations.
I'm Lena Treen, and I am currently a political reporter at CNN, and I'm mainly covering the Trump campaign as we head into 2024. But I also am involved in some of the other campaigns and presidential politics in general. It's a referendum on Donald Trump. That's kind of how Joe Biden ran that campaign. It's also how he's running his current reelection campaign for 2024, which is not only should you his message to voters, not only should you vote for me, but you should vote for me over the other guy or as an alternative to the other guy. And I think we're continuing to see that play out in this election as well. But, I do a lot of work with Republicans because I cover Donald Trump. And one thing that I found to be very interesting is, young voters typically tend to vote more on social issues. I think abortion is definitely going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest issue as we head into 2024. We saw abortion play a massive role in the 2022 midterm elections last year. I do think that's going to be a driving force for a lot of these young voters again in this election. But I do think from covering, particularly, working with and seeing what the DNC does and the RNC does, and then, of course, the campaigns themselves, they do very much want to target these voter blocks and young voters in particular. And I think they're doing so in the type of advertising that we're seeing them put out, both the campaigns, but also the outside groups, and the messaging in certain parts of the country. I know that, again, just covering Donald Trump's campaign, they do a lot of events geared toward young voters as well. We saw him spoke last weekend at the New York Young Republican Club. Events like that, I think, are helpful in trying to motivate and energize these voters to come out.